Lesson 3, the Roman Catholic Church in Europe. The big question here is, how influential was the Roman Catholic Church in medieval Europe? So the Catholic Church in Europe had a heavy influence during the High Middle Ages, the period from about 1000 to 1300 CE. The church was the center of life in medieval Western Europe. Almost every community had a church building, and larger towns and cities had a cathedral. Church bells rang out the hours, called to people to worship, and warned of danger. And you can see this is an example of a medieval church. The church building was the center of the community, of community activity, and many parts of daily life. Religious services were held several times a day. Town meetings, plays, and concerts were also held in churches. Merchants had shops around the square and in front of the church. Farmers sold their produce in the square, and markets, festivals, and fairs were also held there. So you can see that this is literally the center of life. Everything is built around the church. During the Middle Ages, the church was a daily presence from birth to death. It provided education and helped the poor and sick. In fact, religion was so much a part of daily life that people even said prayers to decide how long to cook an egg. Christian belief was so widespread during this time that historians sometimes called the Middle Ages the Age of Faith. People looked to the church to explain world events. Storms, disease, and famine were believed to be punishments sent by God. People hoped prayer and religious devotion would prevent such disasters. They were even more concerned about the fate of their souls after death. The church claimed that salvation, or the saving of one's soul, would come to those who followed its teachings. In this lesson, you will learn how the church began and how it expanded. You will also discover how much the church influenced people's daily lives during the High Middle Ages. And now we move on to section 1. The Christian church takes shape. The Christian religion is one of ancient Rome's most important legacies. Christians are followers of Jesus, who, according to Christian scripture, was put to death on a Roman cross in the 1st century CE. Christians believe that Jesus was the Son of God, that God sent him to earth to save people from their sins, and that he rose from the dead after his death by crucifixion. Initially, the Romans persecuted Christians for their beliefs, yet the new religion continued to spread. In 313 CE, the Roman Emperor Constantine issued a decree allowing Christians to practice their religion freely. In 395 CE, Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire. At the start of the Middle Ages, all Christians in Western Europe belonged to a single church, which became known as the Roman Catholic Church. You can see here in this chart how Christianity begins to spread into different branches. Early church, there's going to be a schism we'll talk about, and then here, Roman Catholic Church. After the collapse of Rome, the church played a vital role in society. In part, it was one of the few ties that people had to a more stable time. The church provided leadership and at times even organized the distribution of food. Sounds very comforting to people. Monasteries or communities of monks provided hospitality to refugees and travelers. Monks also copied and preserved old texts, and in this way helped keep both new and ancient learning alive. The spread of monasteries and the preaching of missionaries helped bring new converts to the Christian faith. You can see this is an example of monks copying down text. The organization of the Roman Catholic Church. Over time, church leaders developed an organization that was modeled on the structure of the old Roman government. By the High Middle Ages, they had created a system in which all clergy members had a rank. See, this is the clergy, or members of the church, officials of the church. The Pope who was the Bishop of Rome, was the supreme head of the Roman Catholic Church. He appointed high-ranking clergymen called cardinals to assist and counsel him. These cardinals ranked just below the Pope in the church hierarchy. A hierarchy is a system of organization with lower and higher positions. Archbishops came next. They oversaw law or large or important areas called archdioceses. Below them were bishops, who governed areas called dioceses from great cathedrals. Within each diocese, priests served local communities called parishes, each of which had its own church building. So today, if you're a member of a church, you have a priest, and then there are the bishops who oversee that church community. Today, there is still only one pope, and there are still cardinals and archbishops who are within this clergy or hierarchy of the church. During the Middle Ages, the church acquired great economic power. By the year 1050, it was the largest landholder in Europe. That's a big deal. Some land was gifted to the church by monarchs. And other land was taken by force. The medieval church added to its wealth by collecting a tithe or tax. Each member was expected to give 1/10 of his money, produce, or labor to help support the church. The church also came to wield great political power. Latin, the language of the church, see that connection to Rome, was the only common language throughout Europe. Church officials were often the only people who could read. As a result, they kept records for monarchs and became trusted scribes and advisors. So you want to think about this. What's the benefit of this? Why is this a good thing? And what's a disadvantage? So why is it a disadvantage for one particular group to have this ability? Perhaps think of what kind of biases they might come with or what their motives might be. At times, the church's power led to conflict with European monarchs. One key struggle involved Pope Gregory VII and Henry IV, the Holy Roman Emperor. Gregory was elected Pope. This is Gregory right here, and there is King Henry, or Emperor. Gregory was elected Pope in 1073. An ambitious leader, he undertook several reforms or changes, such as forbidding priests to marry and outlawing the selling of church offices. So you couldn't pay someone to have an office. He also banned the practice whereby kings could appoint priests, bishops, and heads of monasteries. Think of it, if the king, the leader, could, then they would use people that would benefit them. Only the Pope, announced Gregory, had this right. Gregory's ruling angered Henry IV. Like rulers before him, Henry considered it his duty and privilege to appoint church officials. He called a council of bishops and declared that Gregory was no longer Pope. Gregory responded by excommunicating Henry. This is even worse. This action meant that Henry was thrown out of the church and therefore could not gain salvation, meaning he could not go to heaven when he died. Gregory also said that Henry's subjects were no longer obliged to obey him. So Gregory wasn't accepted by the church. He couldn't go to heaven, and now he didn't have people who were listening to him. The Pope's influence was so great that Henry begged forgiveness and was readmitted into the church. So for a moment, his action revealed the Pope's authority, even over an emperor. But future rulers and popes would resume the fight over the rights of the church versus those of the state.